Welcome back to Talk of the Town on 99.7, 1450 WHTC and WHTC.com.
And we welcome you back to Talk of the Town for this Thursday, May 13th. I'm Gary Stevens. Pretty much on a once-a-month basis, we are joined by the president of the Ottawa County Patriots, Steve Redmond, to talk about an upcoming meeting and some other issues as well. He joins us via the Zoom connection. Steve, good morning. Welcome back to WHTC.
Good morning, Gary. Good to see you today. Can I record this? I can do it on my computer if that's okay with you.
We got the video going as we speak, so
Okay.
it will be available. We'll upload it to our Facebook page a little bit later on.
Not a problem. First of all, I'd like to extend my condolences to you and the family at HTC on the loss of Ed Verskure. I used to come on his show frequently, and he was a fine gentleman, and I always enjoyed my chats with Ed, and I'm very, very sorry to hear that he's passed on.
We all do miss Ed, who started his career in the mid-'60s with us and ended his career with us a little more, almost 2 years ago, hosting Talk of the Town. The Ottawa County Patriots have a monthly meeting, and it's coming up on the 25th. And let's tell us about the meeting, what it's about, and how people can be involved with the meeting.
Okay, well, our meeting is coming up on Tuesday, May 25. It's going to be from 7 to 9 p.m. at the Lighthouse Baptist Church at 501 East 24th Street in Holland. Doors open at 6:30. Meeting is free, open to the public, and the topic this month is client superstition and the myths of renewable energy. And we're bringing in a couple top-notch gentlemen that are well-versed in environmental issues, Mr. Steve Gorham, who we've had here before, and Mr. Jason Hayes. And they're both very knowledgeable about environmental issues, and they'll bring a wealth of information, and it might be a different perspective than some of your listeners have got, but we welcome that. And we're especially welcoming parents to bring school-age kids that have heard a lot about environmental issues, and it may not always be accurate, and we're welcoming them to come and ask the toughest questions they can think of to our speakers, and they're up to it. They're able to handle it, and it might be a very interesting evening for all involved. But the topics are going to be strong ones. The top one on the bullet points is how children are being misled and frightened about climate change and environmental issues, the false foundations of sustainable development, popular myths about renewable energy, the mad world of climatism, which is the title of a book that Steve Gorham had written. It's an excellent book. The Green New Deal, facts versus fiction, and a review of current climate and energy policies and their impact on Michigan residents, how science misinformation can lead to expensive public policies, rules, and regulations, and suggestions on how to develop good public policy on environmental issues. And the gentleman will be providing very solid scientific data and fact-based resources available for the average citizen seeking to learn more about these important issues. So it promises to be a very good meeting with very knowledgeable speakers, and we welcome anyone in the community who has issues or interest in these issues to join us.
Now, as members of the Ottawa County Patriots have maybe an early bird look at these issues, tell us a little bit about that, because to a certain extent, it's a perk of being a member of the Ottawa County Patriots.
Well, you're right. Thanks for mentioning that, Gary. We're having a private recession for people who are members of the Ottawa County Patriots to meet the speakers with some snacks and a little soiree from 5:30 to 6:30. And, the good news is it is a perk of being a member. And the even better news is anyone in the community can become a member of the Ottawa County Patriots, and we can sign you up at the door. And so if you'd like to go to that, give me a call and we'll make sure that we have space available, and we'd love to have you join us. So we're trying to create more value for being a member of the Ottawa County Patriots, and we thought these private meetings with the speakers might be one of the things we could do, because sometimes the meetings are pretty full of folks and people don't always get a chance to speak with the speakers. And this gives them that chance for a little bit more intimate chance to talk with them and ask them questions and enjoy some fellowship.
Now, one topic, and I know for one thing, Steve Redmond is not an expert on renewable energy. He's not an expert
I'm
on
not.
energy. No,
I'm
no,
not.
no, let's not. But something that maybe people who will attend might want to bring up: two forms of energy that have become, shall we say, bad words, four-letter words. One is a four-letter word:
Mhm.
coal.
Mhm.
It seems as if you talk about coal these days. We have a lot of it, but it is bad, bad, bad. Maybe it isn't as bad as if done right. Hey, we're moving great scientific achievements and advancements. I would think eventually we should have a way of taking care of coal very safely.
I think the speakers will be able to really give you a lot of insight into that. And what we've seen recently, as I understand it, is a shift from coal to natural gas. And part of it's because natural gas has been quite inexpensive recently. And so a lot of places, including Holland, switched from a coal-fired power plant to a gas-powered plant. And we also have a gas-powered plant in Zealand. So people in this area benefit from the shift from coal to natural gas. But coal is still part of our energy makeup, and it's kind of being slated to be phased out along with most other fossil fuels, which would include natural gas. And so that's part of what they'll be talking about is what if we go to the Green New Deal and we get rid of all the fossil fuels and we don't like nuclear either, can we really sustain our homes and our factories and our lifestyle with just solar and wind? And that'll be part of the discussion at the meeting. And these gentlemen are very knowledgeable about it. They both have had training in the field. Jason Hayes will be our other speaker, and he's the Director of Environmental Policy for the Mackinac Center for Public Policy. And he's got a master's degree in environmental science from the University of Calgary. So he'll be there. And the Mackinac Center might be known to some of your listeners. And they always bring a lot of really first-rate materials and solid fact-based information to any of their presentations also. So yeah, coal is part of the mix. And I think Mr. Gorham and Mr. Hayes will be able to speak to that far more articulately than I can.
Yeah, coal is one thing that probably they'll bring up. And of course, the other thing, and you sort of glanced at it, nuclear. It has become, ever since 3 Mile Island and Chernobyl, nuclear has definitely become out of fashion. And yet, for a while, it was, the energy of the future. And we had ways of handling it. But, right now, we don't have any ways of really doing it with it safely. It'd be interesting to see if that can be eventually brought up as well.
I think they'll be talking about all of those types of energy, Gary, and new developments and so forth. There's always new technology being developed and different types of nuclear power plants and smaller scale power plants and safer. And so I think Mr. Gorham and Mr. Hayes will be able to speak to all those issues in a very definitive way with really a very fact-based presentation, not just spin or opinion, but the real deal, facts.
616-395-1450. Good morning. You're on the line with Steve Redmond of the Ottawa County Patriots.
Morning, Gary. Obviously, there will be people listening to this program who are scoffing at Steve and the speakers that will be presenting, and they simply won't believe it. Right? One of my question is just a common sense, and I know that there's all kinds of facts to debunk the whole idea of global warming, climate change, whatever you want to call it. But my question is that for those of us who've been around the block once or twice, or 50 years or 60 years, we've heard over and over and over again. By now, per Mr. Gore, the harbors in New York should be flooded and what have you. The predictions have been completely wrong and so on. What is it that makes the current crop of climate change enthusiasts, including some local groups here in Holland, what makes them feel that there's any credibility to the dire predictions of AOC and the other greenies in Congress, in light of the fact that there's been so much that has not come true? The predictions have been wrong. And if I were a court witness and I had been accused of perjury 15 times, I wouldn't have much credibility in that court. But what is it that they're hanging a hat on, other than the fact that they have a sympathetic ear in Washington?
All right, we'll get that response from Steve on that. Go ahead, and thank you very much for the call.
Yeah, I think a lot of it, caller, is that it's a fervent belief, almost like a religion, that it's belief without proof in something, and it's not always backed up by the facts, but it's been bought into by so many people, politicians, business leaders, and others, that it is kind of the de facto, this is the way things are, and that's what most people are led to believe and what most school children are taught. Let me share something from a former environmental radical. Patrick Poole is the co-founder of Greenpeace. You've probably heard of them. And he's also an environmental activist. And he wrote a book recently called Fake Invisible Catastrophes and Threats of Doom. And he wrote it to debunk, in his words, to expose the misinformation and outright lies used to scare us and our children about the future of the earth. Let me give you another quote from an eminent American about this. Harrison Schmitt, you might remember that name. He has a PhD in geology. He's a former US Senator, and he's an Apollo 17 astronaut. He did the foreword to one of Mr. Gorham's books. And basically, he called it a readable analysis of the ideology of climatism and its socialistic goals. It is an important addition to public understanding of both the facts and the critical importance of making the right decisions for America. So those are a couple of prominent Americans, one from the left, one probably more conservative, that have impeccable credentials, and they're writing about this stuff, and they're calling it like it is. And so I think that we're going to have a lot of opportunities for people to hear about some of these predictions that the caller mentioned from eminent scientists and others that were absolutely wrong. And they get a pass on it. And they predicted all kinds of wild things over the years. And the media kind of just shoves that under the rug, and they move on to the next fear-mongering thing that they can scare us about. And a thing I'm most concerned is our children are being scared, and that's just wrong. That poor little Greta Thunberg believes the world will end in 11 years if we don't take drastic actions to stop climate change. And I consider that a form of educational child abuse. She's a young woman with Asperger's syndrome, which is on the autism scale. And her teachers have scared the heck out of her. And she goes around the world telling us that we have to do something immediately. And adults are using the children to promote an agenda that is not good for America. And it's not based on fact, it's based on fear. And that's what this presentation is designed to do, is to basically overcome the fears that have paralyzed people and help them get the facts. Another prominent American, I think, summed it up nicely. Jay Leno said, and this is to quote him, "According to a new UN report, the global warming outlook is much worse than originally predicted," which is pretty bad when they originally predicted it would destroy the planet. So I think Jay kind of encapsulates that we're being scared, and once we're scared, we're being told we have to spend money we don't have for projects that might not make any difference whatsoever and ransom our children and our future for something that isn't based on fact. And that's what this presentation is about, to educate the people in our community that want to be educated, and then to challenge them to do something about it by talking with their friends and their neighbors and our elected officials. That's a goal of the Patriots, and has been for many years, is to educate people with facts and truth, and then to challenge them to do something about it. So we take this very seriously. We bring in knowledgeable, credible speakers, and we tackle all the tough issues. And this is one that we think is becoming to the forefront. And if you just look at what it's costing you to put gas in your car, and some of the other challenges we're facing, this is the tip of the iceberg. Your listeners are going to be dealing with this Green New Deal, whether they want to or not, and it's going to hit them in the pocketbook, and it's going to cause harm to many people that don't know what's coming.
Steve, we have time just to refresh everyone exactly what will be the meeting on May the 25th, the topic and how people can be involved.
Well, the topic is climate superstition and the myths of renewable energy. It's going to be held on Tuesday, May 25th at the Lighthouse Baptist Church, 501 East 24th Street in Holland. Doors open at 6:30. The meeting's from 7 to 9 p.m. There will be a private reception for Ottawa County Patriot members, but anybody can join the Patriots and become a member. That's from 5:30 to 6:30 to meet the speakers in a very small format. The speakers are Steve Gorham, Executive Director of the Climate Science Coalition of America, and Mr. Jason Hayes, Director of Environmental Policy for the Mackinac Center for Public Policy. And Gary, if I've got just a sec, the definition of climatism by Mr. Gorham is the belief that man-made greenhouse gases are destroying Earth's climate. And what he will speak to in this presentation, he will show an increasing body of science indicates that climate change is due to natural cycles of the Earth driven by the sun and other natural causes, and that man-made emissions play only a very small part. This is one of the key things that we'll come across. And I remind the listeners that what's popular isn't always right, and what's right and true is not always popular. We don't worry about being popular, we worry about being right.
Steve Redmond is the president of the Ottawa County Patriots. Steve, as always, we appreciate the time you spend with us and telling us about what's coming up with the Patriots. Wish you and the Patriots well, not only on the 25th, but also throughout the rest of the spring and summer. Look forward to chatting with you later on this year.
Thanks, Gary. Always a pleasure.
Thank you very much. Steve Redmond of the Ottawa County Patriots on 99.7 and 1450 WHTC.